Hello guys, so we're going to continue working on a Node.js application. Okay, so we go back to our code. We had added the controller and the route. So inside our controller folder, there is this file called user controller, and we had added this logic for getting the hello users in the slash users page, and also the add users in the slash add user. And in the routes we had added the user.js. So this one is handling the request whenever there's a get request to slash users. The user controller dot get users is the one handling that and then giving the response to the users. Same case applies to the add user. So whenever there's a get request to this endpoint, this controller action is called, and then it is going to send a response saying add user. So if we go back to the app.js, you can see we are importing this route right here. That's why you're able to see the different routes functioning correctly. So like you see add user, this is the response when you go to slash add user, and then when you go to users, this is the response that you get hello users. So going back to our VS Code, now remember we had added two more folders. So apart from the controllers folder and the routes folder, we had added the model. The model folder is going to come into play later down the line when we start integrating the MongoDB database to this application. So right now I wanted to touch briefly on this view folder, and the view folder is where we're gonna add our template. So for this application, we are going to use a templating engine called EJS. So this one, if we go to Google or any other browser, your favorite browser, let's see, and just search EJS. You're going to see, gonna see the first link is gonna take you to this page, and EJS in full means it's embedded JavaScript templating. So this templating engine allows you to use HTML and JavaScript together. So what that means is if you scroll down there, and let's see, like right here, you see there's an H2 tag, and then there's this uh, syntax right here where it's called the scripted tags in EJS. So it allows you to access properties. Let's say you have an array of objects. So with this templating engine, you're able to render like maybe a list of maybe the names of a list of users. So you're going to use this structure right here. So the if is like, if you know from JavaScript is the if statement. If there is a user, uh, so the h2 is going to be user.name. So that's the syntax that is being used in EJS. So it allows you to combine the power of HTML and JavaScript together. So like for example, this is the tag that was being used for the if, or maybe if you're running maybe a for loop. So this one is called the scriptlet tag. It's used for the control flow. This is the most common, and also this one right here in the third one right here. So it's used to output the value into the template HTML escape. So this one is this one right here. So normally this one is used in combination with this one. So the equal sign means you putting a value inside the in the HTML layer of the h2 tag. Yeah. So without further ado, so we're going to install this one, and to do that, let's see real quick. Get started. So just run in the terminal npm install EJS. So I've already installed on my project. So if you go to your terminal, then just open a new terminal right there. As you can see, I already installed it's under the list of dependencies. So you're just gonna run npm install just like this, npm install, and then dash dash save, and then EJS, and then give it a few seconds. It's going to install. So once you have it installed, let's go back to, once you have it installed, now uh, there is this part right here. I had already added it on the project, but let's go ahead and do it again. To use it, just go ahead and say so to be able to tell uh, the app that the templating engine that we're going to be using is EJS, you have to come and say update set, and then uh, inside the call just type view engine, and then the name of the view engine in our case is EJS, just like that. And I believe we don't have to require this one right here. You don't have to use the constant EJS require EJS. So by setting it right here, you're being implicit and saying this is the template engine that we're going to be using. So to see this in action, so instead of let's see, just one second. So inside the view right here, let's say we want to add maybe an HTML for handling the users. So for this one, you're going to add a new file inside the view, and just maybe the name of the file is user and .ejs. So for this EJS, the last file here you have to put .ejs. So if it's a file for users, just type user.ejs, and in there you can use your normal HTML. So if you type HTML, you're gonna see this pop-up right here. You can even pick this one. So it's gonna add all this. It's gonna scaffold the HTML, and then now you can maybe add the title, users, and then in there you can do an h1 tag. Let's see, h1, and then users list, something like that, and then now down there you can maybe input a paragraph. Maybe you can say maybe James, and then another p tag. Maybe you can say Jane, and then can do maybe another name, maybe Mary, something like that. Okay, so as you can see, now we have an HTML page with the h1 tag and and 3 paragraphs right there. So to be able now to render this page, now we're trying to render this in the view. So to do that, just come into the controller now, because the controller is the one behind the business logic of the application. So now we're trying to render this list of users, and this is the action which is responsible for rendering the list of users. So there is another keyword called render. So you can use the render function, and then now in there you need to specify the name of the this render will go inside the view and look at this name. So if it's user, you have to input in there and say user, and then it takes another argument, if I might say, and then so like an object. So in there, inside this object, you have to specify the path. So so you have to in there you have to come and say now this user view is the one that is going to be rendered when a user goes into this specific path. Now, remember, this get users was being rendered when, if we go back to the routes real quick, this uh, get users action was being called whenever a user goes into the users. So always remember to double check your routes. That way you know which controller is getting called. So if you go back to the user controller real quick, now we need to add that path, and in our case it's the users like that. Okay, so now if you have other things to add into this page, now you can come and maybe title. So let's say you need to add the title of this page, so you can use a comma there, and then maybe page title, something like that. And then since it's a users page, you can say users like that. So uh, this uh, this page title is going to be passed in this view right here. You can when you go to this view, you can access this page title and the value right there. So at this point, this action is ready actually. So let's go through this code one more time. So the name of the action is get users, and then in there we're using the rest and then the render function. And now the first argument is the name of the template that is being rendered. So for our case, the name of the template is called user, and this is the user right there. Okay, the other parameter now inside this object is the path. So now the path now is when a user goes to slash users, and then in there we're also passing another uh, uh, I could say maybe a value. We are passing another value. In our case, the page title is holding a value named users. So if we go, let's see. So let's go back to our application real quick. Let's see. Let's go back to the browser and then open our application. If we go, if you right now we at slash users, right? So if you refresh like that, let's see. Fail to look up view user in views directory. So let me see what could be the user slash user, and then let's see view engine. So just 1 second, let me see. Babe, kwani ameanguka ama? Ani jamani. Nakumbuka nikibenta beba makara. Mena Zaira? Tagunda. Hii pombe au jamaa amezidi. Hata na ameni Acha nione kitu fulani hapa real quick. Kuna kitu ilikuwa naendelea naye hata mm. Stop users. Hello guys. So sorry about that. So I just realized that if we had there was an error right here. You know, when you setting the view engine, EJS auto by default is going to look inside the views folder. But for our case, you will see we named the folder view. So if we go ahead and like if you go to the browser real quick and see, you see there's an error. If you reload like this, you're going to say fail to look at view user in the views directory. Actually, uh, the error this is going to point you to where the error was. So it's supposed to be in the views directory. So if we go back and rename our folder, let's go back to VS Code and just rename the S right there, like that. And this should be able to fix the error in the browser. So go ahead and reload the page and you can see now we have uh, the user template being rendered. So it was the users list and we have James, Jane and Mary. So that's the list of users whom we had right there. So if we go back to our VS Code real quick, right there in our VS, let's see, we go to, you're gonna see is a list of users. So now you remember guys that when we were passing this this user template, uh, we had said that the pay title is holding this users value right there. So to be able to output this part right here, let's copy that. We're gonna go back to where is the template right here. So inside here you see the title part right there. So to see the power of EJS, go ahead and use the special tag that you had seen earlier on in the documentation. So in there, just do that and then do it like that, and then just add the equal sign. And for here, add the name page title. If we go back to the browser real quick and see, uh, you see the title I already add coded the name to be users. So what we can do, let's go to the controller and then maybe we can change the name to list of views or something like that. List of users. Okay, so we go back to the uh, template. You can see now we are trying to output the page title in the inside the HTML file. So let's go back to the browser and maybe refresh our page, and as you can see now the users have been changed to list of users. Okay, so that's one way. That's one way. Let's see. That's one way of outputting data into the view, and it comes by installing the EJS package. So it actually is a templating engine. So this is one way of outputting data from the controller into the view. So another thing that we can do, if we go back to our VS Code real quick, let's see. Um, so for instance, let's say, like you remember, guys, this list of names we've add coded the list of names, and let's say we wanted to dynamically render this data right here. How are we going to do that? So if we go back to the documentation real quick, you can see we're going to be using this if check and then using the same syntax that you just saw right here. to render this data into the view. So let's for example try and render this a list of users. So the use case right now will be, let's say when you have a list of users in the database and you're trying to fetch that a list of users and then output. Maybe when the user goes to display, they're able to see this list of users, but it's coming from the database. So to simulate that scenario, we will create an array of users, and then we're gonna pass that data from the controller into the template that we just did, like we just did for this list of users right there. So let's go back to VS, and then let's say let's go into our controller, and then actually we're going to create another JSON file. So we can name this file maybe users.json, and then in there we can add maybe an array of objects. So maybe the first object is going to own the name of the first user. So we can say name. Let's see. I think it's supposed to be double quotes like that. So name, and then maybe John Doe. I think for JSON it's supposed to be double quotes. So I can say John Doe, and then maybe age, or maybe phone. We can maybe use just some random numbers right there, and then maybe email. We're going to be using just a random email, so we can say jd@gmail.com. So we can replicate the same real quick. That way we have maybe 3 users. So for the, and then let's add one more. So that was John Doe. We can name this Jendo, and this one Mary Doe. So now we have our JSON file ready, and this is acting as our database. So let's see. Try and see what could be the error. Oh, okay. So we need to add as you can normally with the help of the VS Code, when you have an error in your file, you're gonna see something like this, like the red part. So just go back and see if there is a section where it has been highlighted. So we are missing a semicolon. So as you can see now, the red color has been removed. So now our data is ready. So this is like maybe data stored in the database. So let's go back to the controller and then import that data. So you can say maybe const, because we are importing inside the controller, because the controller is the one trying to render. Actually, the controller is going to be passing that data into this template, the user template. So we have to import this data in the controller. So we're going to say const data. You can even use let's say user data. User data like that. Then we're going to require that the file. And so in there we can let's see. My bad, because we need to, the user controller file is inside the folder, so we have to use the 2 dots and then the slash. Now we can access the users the JSON like that right there. So for this now you'll come, let's say now we're trying to pass it to this view, because this user data holds the list of users, all this information right here, the array of objects. So we come back here and pass it there. So to pass it to the view, we can name it users, and then just pass the user data like that. Okay, now this user data is available in the view. So let's go back, let's close the users.json, and the user routes, we don't need it now, you can close it. And then now we need to go to the user.ejs. Now we need to, as you can see, if you have maybe 1,000 lists of users, it's gonna be tedious and repetitive to keep writing another p tag after the p tag, that's like that. So to be really efficient, you need to just use one p tag and then loop the list of users in there. That way the template is going to re-render for each iteration of the loop. So for here, we can do we can come and say so let's go back to the documentation real quick. So if we go back to the documentation, you can see let's see, if user, so I think we're going to be using the for. I think the for loop is good for this use case, or even the for each. So let's go ahead and use the for loop. So let's go back to the VS. So for here, you can do it like this. Sorry, and then give you some space in there. Use the for. So the for loop uses this parentheses, and then in there you can say let user, I believe it's user of users, something like that. And then we need to close these tags right here. So it's a good practice to always, when you open, you close it immediately, that way, because normally it's really hard to find this error whenever there's an error, like maybe I'm missing, maybe when you have a missing tag, it's normally kind of hard to find it. So let's see, for let me double check and see. Let me go back to the documentation real quick. Let's see if we can find so you can just say EJS for loop, and then just pick the first one in Stack Overflow. So it's a good resource for searching. So let's see, just 1 second. Okay, so I think there's something that we need to do real quick. Okay, let's see, I think there's the opening curly braces, and then in there you have to close it, something like that. And then in here you can copy the same format right here, you can use that. Let's see, so you can copy that, and then just inside the p tag where we're trying to output the name of, let's say, the name of each of the users. So instead of outputting James, we're going to use these special tags, and then just say let, remember in the for loop we were using let user of user. So now we are looking at one item, like one user in here. Now we are inside this for loop. Now we are looking at one user, so we're going to say user, And remember, if you go to the JSON, the user.json, each user has a name, phone, and email. Name, phone, and email. So if you come back here, each user, now we're trying to output the name, so we're going to say user.name, just like that. So if we go to our browser, go back to the browser and then refresh, you can see now the for loop is going to iterate through the list of the data that we were getting from the JSON file, and it's going to go and pick the first name and output the John, and then the second Jane, Mary, and just like that. Now actually, sorry, so let me open the browser that we can see. If you reload the browser, you can see now we have the John, the Jane, and Mary. So it's going to look through the list of users and output the different list, actually the different names of the users, because we had only said that we wanted to access the name. So this is the first name, this is the name of the first user, and then the second and the third user right there. So now you're starting to see the power of EJS and the templating engine. So it really it is really useful when you're building an application where you're dealing with a lot of data. So because JavaScript has these different ways of iterating through the different data, and then it makes it easy to present it to the view. Now another thing, now we're able to render the names of the users. So we can also use the if check. Remember, if we go to the documentation real quick, in the documentation you can see there's this if, so we can even do one if check just to make sure whenever there is if there's a list of users, output the list of users. If we don't have a list of users, you can maybe say there is no users right now, something like that. So we can use the if check right there. You can copy or just type it. So if we go back to the VS Code, on top here we need to set this condition and say if, remember, let me type it that way you guys can see. So let me give it a space. So in there I'll give it a space, and then let's see. Now I'm going to use the if check, and then remember to open the curly braces, and then now this if check is going to wrap to wrap all this right here, this the p tag. So down there you can come and say we can close the tag, that way we don't forget. So, and then close it like that. So in there we can say if users, if we have a list of users, output this, else now let's close it again before we forget. So else and then close the curly braces. So else we can output maybe an h1 in there, maybe an h1 saying no list of users, okay, something like that. So